Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the life you're experiencing isn't really yours. That the decisions you've made, the aspirations you pursue, and even the worries you hold may not have come from your own soul, but were sculpted by unseen hands. Family expectations, social conditioning, and unspoken norms. Nobody speaks, but everybody listens. Have you ever considered how much of who you are is genuinely you? And how much of it is just a mask, skillfully manufactured to fit into a world that never asks who you truly are? Today, I ask you to pause, look below the surface, and challenge the script you've been following without even recognizing it. Because there is a different voice beneath the clamor, the strain, and the never-ending striving. Suggestions. Driving feels a little abrupt here. Striving or hustle might work well. A quieter version. A voice whispers the truth that you have always known but may have forgotten. This journey isn't about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. To better comprehend this, we turn to Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human spirit. Carl Jung believed that life does not really begin until you discover yourself. Not the self you present to the world, not the one you created to survive, but the deeper, unspoiled self that has been quietly waiting beneath it all. He referred to this journey as individuation, or the lifelong process of discovering one's true self. To Jung, psychological development was not about conforming to society's expectations. It was not about fitting in, pleasing others, or gaining favor. It was about peeling back the layers of conditioning, confronting the aspects of yourself you'd hidden away, and integrating them into a complete real being. It is not a simple journey. It requires guts, honesty, and a willingness to confront the unknown within yourself. But Jung thought, and I want you to believe, that beyond the unknown lies a life more real, lively, and uniquely yours than anything you've ever imagined. The world shapes us from the minute we are born. We're given a name, an identity, and a set of unseen laws governing who we should be. Before we have the vocabulary to question, we are instructed what is acceptable, what is applauded, and what must be kept hidden. Be firm, polite, practical, don't be overly emotional, and don't dream too big. Initially, we are raw, unfiltered beings full of curiosity, emotion, and intuition. However, we are learning slowly. We learn to grin even when we aren't happy. We learn to nod when we disagree. We learn to hide the aspects of ourselves that do not suit the model. And with each minor compromise, we begin to form a mask. A face designed not to expose our identity, but to protect us. The mask that gets praise protects us from rejection and allows us to thrive in a harsh world. Corrected, the mask should be the mask. Carl Jung dubbed this the persona, or the public face we present to the world. It is not necessarily terrible. It enables us to manage relationships, communities, and jobs. However, the danger arises in forgetting that it is a mask. Over time, many of us confuse the persona with our genuine selves. We forget the dreams we've buried. We lose sight of the emotions we once felt so strongly. We get so proficient at playing the role that we forget we're even performing. Something begins to stir behind the neatly crafted veneer. A calm restlessness. A notion that no matter how much we do or how much we are praised, something important is lacking. Correction. Quiet unrest should be a quiet unrest, because no mask, no matter how flawless, can ever replace the soul it conceals. If the persona is what we present to the world, the shadow is what we conceal from it. It is a compilation of everything we have been told is wrong, shameful, or dangerous. Anger, vulnerability, forbidden desires, and even secret strengths. But here is the truth. We cannot simply ignore the shadow and expect it to go. It doesn't vanish into nothingness. Instead, it persists unseen but powerful, changing our ideas, influencing our behaviors, and coloring how we perceive others. Have you ever met anybody who quickly triggered you? Someone whose mere presence elicited an intense emotional response, even if you couldn't fully understand why. Often, the things we find most objectionable in others are the same tendencies we have hidden inside ourselves. Jung referred to this as projection. Correction, Jung should be Jung. When we project the rejected elements of ourselves onto those around us, the arrogance, neediness, and ambition we mock, they're often just mirrors, reflecting on the elements of our own mind that we are hesitant to confront. The more we reject these aspects of ourselves, the more influence they gain over us. They sabotage our connections. They amplify our fears. They whisper self-doubt in our fantasies. But what if the shadow wasn't the enemy? What if it was a map guiding us to the pieces we need to reclaim in order to be whole? Jung thought that true transformation comes from accepting, rather than fighting, the shadow, not by eliminating our darkness, but by shedding light on it, by daring to view ourselves as whole beings with both brightness and darkness within. Because of the aspects of yourself that you have hidden away, they are not your weaknesses. They are your untapped strength, eagerly waiting for you to return home. Most of us have an instinct to flee, to avoid the aspects of ourselves that are too dark, too shameful, or too difficult to confront. We try to lock them up, convinced that if we ignore them long enough, they will vanish. But they don't. We reject the darkness, therefore it does not fade. It becomes stronger in the dark. Carl Jung recognized a profound reality. Real healing does not result from removing the shadow. It results from merging it. Integration entails returning to aspects of ourselves that we have previously rejected. It entails confronting the anxieties, traumas, and desires we were taught to suppress, and viewing them as fundamental components of who we are rather than enemies. Consider it like this. When you exile a part of yourself, you also lose the energy, inventiveness, and strength that part possesses. You stay split and unfinished. But when you bring those pieces back into the light and meet them with compassion rather than judgment, something wonderful happens. You start to feel entire again. Integration does not imply acting on every inclination or justifying every imperfection. It entails knowing where such impulses come from. It entails acknowledging the anguish behind the wrath, the need behind the fear, the compassion behind the rage, and with understanding comes choice. You can now respond to life with awareness and independence, as you are no longer driven by unconscious forces. Jung thought that integrating your shadow reveals a source of authenticity and inner force. You become someone who is not perfect, but genuine. Someone who is courageous, rather than fearless. Someone who stands in their truth without shame or apologies. And there is where actual transformation starts. If this content makes sense to you, click the subscribe button to follow the channel. Thank you for your support. Suggestions? This statement feels out of place in the narrative flow. Consider moving it to the end or framing it as a separate call to action. Even when we believe we have everything under control, the unconscious mind is constantly speaking to us, sending signals and attempting to be heard. Sometimes it talks through dreams, those weird, vivid excursions that appear illogical yet leave an indelible mark on our hearts. It sometimes communicates through spontaneous flashes of intuition, a knowing that transcends logic and reason. It sometimes communicates through our fears, triggers, patterns, and behaviors that we cannot fully understand. Have you ever had a phobia that resurfaces no matter how hard you try to silence it? A pattern of connections that feels like déjà vu, an opportunity that feels good even when it doesn't make sense on paper. These are not random. They represent the language of the unconscious. However, most of us have been conditioned to ignore this language. We drown it out with noise, incessant busyness, never-ending distractions, scrolling, racing, and avoiding the calm that contains the deeper questions. Why? Because confronting oneself is uncomfortable. Sitting silently with our own thoughts can be unnerving. It makes us experience the pain we've buried, the fury we've stifled, and the longings we've ignored. It removes the masks. It dismantles the illusions we've carefully constructed. Consider the dread of rejection. Many of us spend our lives attempting to avoid it, seeking approval, pleasing others, and suppressing our genuine voice in order to keep safe. But if you track that fear back to its source, you'll typically discover a much older wound. Perhaps your feelings were dismissed in childhood. Perhaps there was a period when your true self was ridiculed or rejected. As a result, you learned something. You learned to protect yourself by masking your true identity. But the unconscious does not forget. It keeps poking you, gently but constantly, encouraging you to pay attention and heal. Jung thought that when we start listening to these messages, when we stop fleeing and start looking inward, we begin the true road of individuation. We begin to recover the parts of ourselves that have been hiding, aching to be seen. It's not easy. It's not comfy. However, it is the only one that leads to the life you were supposed to have. Because you cannot truly be free unless you confront your own demons. A secret universe exists beneath the surface of your mind, deeper than memory and personal experience, created not just by your own life, but also by the experiences of countless generations before you. Carl Jung termed this the collective unconscious. Correction, Jung should be Jung. And inside it are the archetypes, universal patterns, and ageless characters that have led humanity since the dawn of storytelling. Think about it. The bold hero who defies the odds. A wise mentor who provides counsel. The mysterious villain lurks in the darkness. The naive child is full of wonder and hope. These figures are not only myths. They are reflections of our inner world. Each of you contains these archetypes within. They form our dreams, worries, and wants, frequently without our knowledge. The hero summons us to adventure. The shadow challenges us with fears that we must overcome. The youngster reminds us of the purity we once had, but may have forgotten. Have you ever been drawn to a narrative, a character, or a myth without really understanding why? Perhaps this is because the same archetypal drama is playing out deep within you. Correction/suggestion, added perhaps for smoother flow. The hero archetype awakens when you experience a strong desire to grow, encounter obstacles, and become more than you are. When you struggle with inner worries and uncertainties, the shadow appears on your path. Jung thought that comprehending these archetypes extended beyond mythology and literature. It's about understanding oneself. Because we adore the stories, fight the battles, and pursue our ambitions. They're all echoes of an old dance between the forces within ourselves. When you become aware of these patterns, you gain the ability to move beyond unconscious repetition and into conscious transformation. You understand you're not just a passive participant in someone else's story. You are the author of your own myth. The inner world, however, is far more complex and complicated than heroes and villains. Jung recognized that every soul has another vital dance, the interaction between masculine and feminine energies. He named them anima and animus. Correction, an animus should be anima and animus. The anima is the feminine aspect of the masculine. The animus represents the masculine within the feminine. And this is unrelated to physical gender. It is about energy. It explores the whole range of what it means to be human. The anima represents intuition, emotion, creativity, and a strong connection to the unseen. Correction, the anima should be the anima. The animus represents logic, structure, willpower, and resolve. Both are necessary. Both are sacred. Both must be honored if we are to be entire. But what happens if we reject one side? A guy who conceals his anima may be afraid of vulnerability, have difficulty expressing his feelings, or be disconnected from intuition. Correction, anima should be anima. A woman who conceals her animus may be hesitant to express herself, question her own authority, or feel stuck by indecision. The imbalance causes internal strife, sometimes loud, sometimes silent, but always leading us away from our inner center. Jung taught individuation. The route to become your genuine self necessitates accepting both forces inside you. We welcome the sensitivity and strength, the openness and action, the flowing and grounded. When the anima and animus are linked, a person becomes flexible, robust, and alive in a way that is unconstrained by strict roles or outdated expectations. Corrected, anima should be anima. You're no longer limited by a restricted concept of what it is to be male or female. You're simply whole. And from that completeness emerges a greater power, the ability to face life fully, love profoundly, and create bravely. Because when the masculine and feminine within you walk side by side, you travel through the world not divided, but whole. Most people go through life convinced that they know exactly who they are. A name, a career, and a collection of memories and experiences woven into a narrative. But what if the narrative isn't entirely true? What if you think you are merely a small part of something far larger? Carl Jung, like many mystics and thinkers, dared to pose a startling question. Corrected, Jung should be Jung. Is the self actually fixed? Or is it something much more fluid, expansive, and alive? You see, the mind enjoys certainty. It adheres to definitions, classifications, and bounds. This describes who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I fear. However, these recognizable identities do not provide the complete picture. They resemble theatrical clothes. They're useful in specific scenes, but they do not represent the full performer. Jung recognized that the ego, the part of us that declares, I am this and not that, is only a surface layer, a necessary fabrication. Yes, but it may also be a prison if taken to represent the entirety of who we are. Because the self is underneath the ego, not the little, anxious self that worries and clings, but the wide self that is linked to everything. A self that is constantly evolving, growing, and striving for wholeness. Imagine a river meandering through a valley. The ego is like a solitary rock protruding from the ocean, solid and unmoving, attempting to maintain its position. However, the genuine self is the river itself, alive, changing, and powerful beyond measure. The misfortune is that most people mistook the rock for the river. They cling to their fixed identity, fearful to have it washed away, hesitant to walk into the tide of their own transformation. But here is the truth. You were never intended to stay the same. You were never intended to harden into a single form of yourself and declare it final. Life is movement, change, and transition. According to Jung, the self is not a fixed entity that can be captured or pinned down. It's a process, a dynamic unfolding of everything you are and will become. This understanding can be unsettling since it requires you to give up the false security of your previous stories. It prompts you to reconsider all you thought you understood about yourself. But it is also profoundly liberating because it frees you from the illusion of a fixed identity, allowing you to explore infinite possibilities. You realize you are not constrained by your past. Your wounds do not determine who you are. You're not trapped by your faults or the labels others have given you. You are something considerably greater. You're alive, breathing mystery, a dance between light and shade, knowledge and innocence, power and fragility. And when you stop associating primarily with the ego and begin to feel the vastness within, you reclaim power that was always yours. The ability to choose, grow, heal, and become. Because you're not a rock that stands still against the river. You are the river itself, moving, changing, and alive. Being someone else does not help you develop your sense of self. It is something you recall by letting go of anything that is not you. And in that recalling, you discover a freedom so profound, so complete, that it alters not only how you see yourself, but also how you navigate the world. If the self you believed you were is just a piece, how can you get back to the whole? The journey is not complicated, but it does demand bravery. The courage to let go and venture into the unknown. The initial step is to embrace the uncertainty. Most people dread what they don't comprehend. They cling to certainty, even if it limits them. However, true growth occurs when you venture outside of your comfort zone. Allowing mystery into your life creates an opportunity for transformation. The second step is to remove the attachment to the labels. You are more than just your career, accomplishments, failures, or past. You are far beyond description. Let go of the impulse to define yourself so precisely. Make space for something better to develop. The third step is to listen to your unconscious. Your dreams, intuition, and deep longings are not just noise. They are messages from your deeper self that direct you back to who you truly are. Pay attention. Write them down. Honor them. The fourth stage is to surrender to the process. Finding yourself is not a destination you can visit once and for all. It is a living journey, one that will continue as long as you live. Trust the process of unfolding. Trust that even when you feel lost, you're getting closer to your truth. Because the self you desire is not too far away. It's right here, waiting for you to recall. You've spent all this time looking for answers, purpose, and yourself. But the truth is that you were never really lost. You were never broken. You were never incomplete. The voice you've been waiting to hear has always been your own. Correction, voice should be the voice. The strength you seek has always existed within you. The love you crave has always been yours. Finding yourself does not imply becoming someone new. It's about removing the layers of fear, expectation, and delusion that have obscured your light. It's about remembering what your soul always knew. You're whole. You are enough. You are already at home. The choice now is to live as the huge, infinite creature you were born to be. Life doesn't fully begin until you discover yourself. And now you know the path.